A traveling tradesman spots a noble lady sitting alone on a bench, enjoying a sandwich, and it looks really tasty, so he approaches her and asks if she'd let him try some. The lady readily agrees since she's always happy to share her meals with others, so she reaches into her picnic basket and makes the man a sandwich. When he tries it, he is delighted by how delicious it tastes, so he asks the lady if she'd share the recipe with him. However, he probably should have asked that before he ate it because the girl informs him that the sandwich had blackhorn wolf meat in there. The tradesman awkwardly excuses himself and throws up next to a tree because he never could have anticipated that she'd give him a monster meat sandwich. Blackhorns are notorious for their poisonous flesh, so he thinks the lady must be insane to be eating it so casually, but while she may be weird, she's not stupid. She went through a lot of effort to process the meat so it would be safe enough to eat, but so far, no one has been open-minded enough to give her food a fair chance. A few days later, Melf is attending a banquet and she can't get enough of the wide variety of meat she gets to stuff her face with. Everything here is both delicious and well presented, so she's having trouble deciding what to eat next. But before she could wander off on her own, Mrs. Talbot walks over and reminds her that she's not here for the food. The autumn banquet is an excuse for all the nobles in the land to gather and associate with one another for political reasons, so in plain terms, Melf is here to find a different kind of meat. She didn't actually want to come since she knew she'd be bored out of her mind, but her stepmom threatened to send her to a monastery and have her become a monk if she didn't get engaged by the end of the year, so she had no choice. Her dad wasn't as pushy about it, but he did still ask her to find someone soon, which is why she agreed to attend this event. But things aren't going well for her since all the nobles here recognize her as the monster meat muncher, and they don't want to get involved with her. She decides to head to a different section of the party where most of the knights have gathered, and she plans to find a knight who hasn't heard the rumors about her and convince him to get married to her before he finds out about her little hobby. But before she could actually talk to anyone, a huge commotion breaks out as several nobles scream that monsters are attacking the banquet. Can't say it's surprising since this was bound to happen when you hold a banquet with tons of food in the middle of the forest, but that's not the point right now. Melf starts running away along with the rest of the nobles as the knights charge forward to confront the monster, but then she notices an old couple nearby who seem to be having some trouble. She goes over to ask them if everything is alright, but while the couple isn't hurt, the man's walking stick just broke, so he can't get up on his own anymore. Melf offers to help him stand so they can all get out of here, and they are grateful for her assistance, but just then their eyes go wide because there's something huge behind Melf. She turns around and is shocked to see a wild blackhorn standing right there. There's still enough time for her to run without the monster noticing her, but if she did that, then the old couple would be left in harm's way. So instead, she starts shouting to get the monster's attention and bait it into following her away from the old-timers. She's glad that she managed to save them, but there's no way she can outrun it, so this might really be the end for her. However, just as she was about to be trampled, a lone knight dashes forward and beheads the Blackhorn in one swift motion. His name is Roger Galbraith, and he is well known as the Blood-Mad Duke because of how ruthless he is when it comes to battles. And the people here really seem to enjoy gossiping because Roger just saved all their lives, but they're too busy murmuring about how terrifying he is to thank him like normal people. Melf falls silent at the realization that the man before her right now is the famous blood-crazed Duke, and she's not sure if the rumors about him being a blood-crazed serial killer are true or not, but that doesn't matter to her right now because Roger is way too hot for her to care. She gets up and introduces herself to him, which comes as a surprise to Roger since most women would have run away from him by now in a situation like this. Just then, Melf notices some of the Blackhorn blood dripping towards Roger's mouth, and she frantically asks him to wipe it off before he accidentally ingests it, because the blood of a corrupted Blackhorn is incredibly toxic to people. And even if it wasn't corrupted, she knows from personal experience that ingesting the raw blood of a beast will give you severe diarrhea. Roger doesn't know what to say at this point since he has never met a girl who knows so much about monsters, and Melf soon realizes that she might have freaked him out by talking too much. Roger appreciates Melf's concern, but he already has some holy water ready to deal with any potential blood poisoning. He even offers some to Melf since even though she probably didn't swallow any blood, it never hurts to be safe. Roger then notices that her dress is covered in blood, so he offers to take her somewhere so she can get a replacement, but while Melf appreciates the gesture, she tells him that it won't be necessary. Monster blood washes out really easily with a little warm water and baking soda, so her dress isn't ruined or anything. But that's not what Roger was referring to. Most nobles are disgusted by the mere thought of wearing clothes tainted by monster blood, so he wonders why it doesn't seem to bother her. Without thinking, Melf blurts out that she butchers monsters all the time, so she's used to getting covered in blood every now and then. Roger is shocked to learn that Melf butchers monsters, and she realizes she has said way too much, so she apologizes for it. But instead of being disgusted by her, Roger bursts out in laughter because he recalls hearing rumors about Melf eating monsters, and he can't believe it's actually true. Monsters in this world are very different when compared to regular animals. Due to the magical energy that their bodies contain, consuming monster meat typically causes vomiting and fevers, so it is generally discarded, but Melf always thought that was wasteful. There's no point in hiding it now, so she admits that the rumors are indeed true, and that when she looks at that corpse over there, the only thing she can think about is how tasty the meat would be. But she realizes saying it out loud makes it sound even worse. By this point, she expects Roger to awkwardly shuffle away any minute, so she puts on her best. I don't know what to do anymore, smile and waits to see what he does. But as it turns out, Roger is actually enchanted by the lovely smile on Melf's blood-covered face. So much so that he can barely look her in the eyes, so instead he grabs her hand and starts leading her away from the party. After a while, Roger realizes he should probably say something so things don't get awkward, so he asks Melf if the monster meat actually tastes good. This isn't the first time someone has asked Melf this question, but it usually doesn't end well when she gives an honest answer. She tells Roger that blackhorn meat actually tastes a lot like beef, but while most would sneer and disregard her opinion as crazy talk, Roger actually seems to be taking her seriously, and that's a first for her, so she's really happy. She goes on to explain that the key to making the meat safe to eat is getting rid of all the magic in it, and she says that's easy enough to do during the bleeding process, so Roger asks her if she'd be willing to make some for him. Melf says she'd be more than happy to do so, but she does warn him that meat from mad beasts like the one he killed today tends to be a little rough on the stomach even with proper preparation, so he's going to have to wait until she can get her hands on some non-corrupted meat. Roger says he's looking forward to it, but in the meantime, he still wants to get Melf a new dress to change into, so he leads her back to his trute's pavilion. Roger's subordinate, Chaos, comes out to greet him upon his arrival, and after Melf introduces herself, he is instructed to get her a new dress to change into. In the meantime, Roger takes her to one of the tents and prepares a little bath of hot water so she can wash the blood off her face. Melf insists that there's no need for him to go so much trouble for her sake, especially when there's way more monster blood on him than there is on her. She tells Roger he should prioritize cleaning himself first, but that was always the plan, and he has already started taking his shirt off. He doesn't see anything wrong with it since he does it all the time, but Melf, on the other hand, is getting extremely flustered. She'd have seen knights take their shirts off during training sessions before, but it still spikes her heart rate every time it happens. Roger asks her if something is wrong, and Melf doesn't want to lie, so she admits that she was admiring his incredible physique. Roger has never really put much thought into what his body looks like, but he does train often to be able to fight monsters regularly, so it's natural that he be muscular. Melf thought he looked cool when he beheaded the Blackhorn, so she asks him if she'd be able to learn how to do that as well. Roger says anyone can learn to do what he did, but in Melf's case, her arms aren't conditioned for it, so she'd be better off leaving the fighting to him. He asks her if there's any particular monster she'd like to try since he'd be willing to hunt it down for her. And as soon as he says this, Melf's eyes light up because there are so many things she has been dying to taste. But just then, Chaos returns and lightly scolds Roger because he thinks it is inappropriate for him to be half naked in front of a young lady like this. Roger argues that he only took off his shirt so he's not completely exposed, but either way, it's still not appropriate. A little while later, Melf has changed into the dress Chaos prepared for her, and she absolutely loves the design on it. Roger says he borrowed that dress from the Queen a while ago, and he thinks it looks really good on her. But the entire time he has been holding the head of the Blackhorn, and all his men are shocked that Melf doesn't seem to mind. Most ladies would have fainted if Roger came anywhere near them with that thing, so they are all happy that he finally found someone he gets along with. Later that evening, it's time for Melf to return home, so Roger escorts her back to her carriage. She thanks him once again for saving her life and says goodbye. He tells her that the next time they meet, he will have a special present ready for her, and she says she can't wait, but if he's going to be bringing a monster for her, she requests that he capture it alive because the meat would taste better that way. Roger has never tried capturing a monster alive before, but he's up for the challenge. However, that might take a while, so in the meantime, Melf offers Roger some Scatspit monster jerky she made, and she assures him that she was very thorough with the preparation process, so there's no risk of him getting sick from it. If Melf is the one who made it, Roger trusts that it'll be safe, so he takes a bite without hesitation, and he is pleasantly surprised by how delicious it actually is. Chaos yells at Roger because it's reckless for someone of his authority to eat food without having it tested for poison first, but Roger says it's fine and sticks a piece of the meat in Chaos's mouth to show him how good it tastes. They both agree that it's delicious, and Roger tells Melf that he can't wait to see what else she can make the next time they meet, but all of a sudden she ducks her head down. She was brought to tears by the fact that someone finally recognizes her hobby and doesn't think she's weird for eating monster meat. She pulls herself together so she can say her last goodbye to Roger, but she can hardly wait to meet him again. It takes a few days for Melf's carriage to get her home, and by the time they return, it is already snowing in the region. Melf looks ahead, and to her surprise, she sees her father waiting for her at the gate. So once she gets there, he opens the door and she asks him if something is wrong. At first, she thinks he might be upset because she did manage to get engaged, but that's not exactly it. He reminds her that he is merely a count and he has no idea how to handle things now that she has gotten involved with a duke. Melf isn't sure what he is talking about, so her father informs her that Roger Galbraith is asking for her hand in marriage, and he already sent a formal proposal letter, so he isn't sure how to respond. Melf can see that her father is freaking out, and frankly, she is too, because she knew she and Roger had gotten along well at the banquet, but she didn't think he'd take it this far so quickly. As for what happened on Roger's end, after Melf departed, he returned to his pavilion to give a status update on his duties to the Crown Prince, also known as Maxim, Roger's older brother. Roger informed him that his men have completed a sweep of the area to make sure there are no more dangerous beasts nearby, and that the monster's den has already been dealt with appropriately. Maxim thanks him for doing such a good job, but he asks Roger if he could stop addressing him so formally all the time since they are brothers after all. However, Roger says he can't do that because while they may be related by blood, 17 years ago, Maxim was appointed as Crown Prince, and Roger was adopted by the Galbraith family, so he is nothing more than Maxim's subject now. Maxim can see that Roger isn't going to be dropping the formalities anytime soon, so he asks him if he has anything else he wants to talk about. Like for instance, a date he had with a cute redhead girl recently. Roger is shocked that Maxim already knows about that, but he says he keeps tabs on everything his darling little brother gets up to. While Roger was distracted, Maxim reaches into the picnic basket he had gotten from Melf and takes out a piece of jerky. Without a second thought, he takes a bite out of it, and he is impressed by how good it tastes, so he asks Roger what kind of meat it is. Roger sighs because a crown prince really shouldn't be eating stuff without confirming what it is first, but since he wants to know, Melf said this was jerky made from scatsbit meat, these little guys. Maxim finds it intriguing that a monster could taste this good, so he asks if Melf made it herself, because if she did, she might be onto something. But the jerky aside, Maxim is much more interested in talking about what Roger plans to do with Melf. Normally, it'd be unheard of for the daughter of a count to be involved with a duke, but Roger has had an undisputed L streak with the ladies, so meeting Melf might be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a loner like him. Roger has no interest in listening to his brother's teasing, so he says he has nothing more to report and walks out of the tent. He finds it annoying that his brother keeps butting into his business all the time, but he admits to himself that Maxim may be right. It's not often that someone takes a genuine interest in Roger, much less someone who is as brave and captivating as Melf, so he needs to think about his next move carefully. He eventually decides that the best course of action would be to fulfill his promise and capture that monster Melf had asked him for so he can surprise her the next time they meet. Meanwhile, back at Melf's home, she and her father are busy staring at the jewel-encrusted letter that was sent here. Melf's father tells her that before she returned, a messenger from the Duke's family arrived on a Blaze Eagle to deliver this letter, and Melf is disappointed that she didn't get to see the Blaze Eagle in person. But that's not the point here. Her father asks her what happened between her and the Duke, so Melf explains that she was simply attacked by a monster, so Roger stepped in to save her. Her father can't believe that's really all that happened because Melf had never so much as seen Roger before this banquet, and now he's asking for her hand in marriage. Melf takes a look at the letter, and it definitely looks like something Roger had written, since it talks about all the fun he had with Melf right before he asked her hand in marriage, but Melf can't help but wonder if there's some kind of ulterior motive here. Her father tells her she doesn't have to accept the proposal if she doesn't want to, but he'd have to make up a really good reason to turn down an engagement request from a duke. Later that night, Melf takes a closer look at the letter Roger sent, and she comes to the conclusion that he must love monster meat just as much as she does, so he wants to get closer to her so he will have someone to share the hobby with. However, as she squeezes the letter tight, she notices that some magic seems to be coming off of it, and a hidden message is suddenly revealed. It says that Roger will visit her before the end of the winter, specifically by the 18th of the month, which just so happens to be tomorrow, so Melf's father starts freaking out again. Melf is just as flustered because she didn't think she'd get to meet him again so soon. She's still not sure what his intentions are, but there's no point in worrying about that right now. The next morning, Melf's stepmother comes to her room to wake her up, and she's appalled by the fact that Melf is still in her nightgown this late in the morning. She makes up an excuse and says she was just waiting for Celia to get here so she could help pick out an outfit, but in reality, she literally woke up a minute before Celia arrived. As far as stepmothers go, Celia isn't particularly mean to Melf, but she's not very nice either, and she never misses a chance to scrutinize every decision Melf takes. She knows she was the one who insisted on Melf finding a husband as soon as possible, but she asks her what she was thinking choosing the blood-mad Duke of all people. Melf couldn't care less about all of Celia's comments, so she just stands there silently while her maids get her dressed, but all of a sudden she hears a loud roar outside, so she rushes to open the window and sees a flock of glacial dragons approaching. Glacial dragons are common around here, so Melf realizes this must be Roger's envoy, and a few moments later he flies up next to Melf's window and tells her he's here to ask for her hand in marriage. He also mentions that he brought the gift he promised her last time, and she's excited to hear that, but Celia is terribly frightened by the dragon, so she yells for Melf to close the window immediately. Melf leans outside and asks Roger to land the dragons over by the northern pasture, and once he's gone, she closes the window and buries her face into the curtains to hide how much she is blushing. She already knew Roger was handsome, but seeing him riding on a dragon so casually made him look way cooler than usual, and her heart is beating so fast that she doesn't know what to do. While Melf was trying to calm herself down, Celia has been trying to get her attention for a while now, and when she finally gets through to her, she tells Melf that she's going to lie down for a bit because seeing that dragon made her feel ill. As she is leaving, she grumbles to herself about how Roger must really be insane to be riding dragons around like that, and that he's not fit to be a duke, but Melf refuses to let her badmouth Roger any further, so she tells Celia that she intends to accept Roger's proposal, and she'd appreciate it if Celia would refrain from speaking about her future husband that way. Celia leaves the room in a huff after that, and an hour or so later Melf meets with Roger out in the pasture. There she explains to him that she only found out that he'd be visiting when she read his letter yesterday, so she wasn't able to prepare anything for him, but Roger doesn't mind. If anything, he should be the one apologizing for showing up so abruptly. Just then, Chaos speaks up and says the only reason they came so quickly was because Roger couldn't wait to see her again, but Roger tells him to stop spouting nonsense. Anyway, Roger asks Melf where she'd like him to drop off her gift, and as he says this, he points over to a cage wrapped in a cloth, so Melf's eyes light up at the realization that he really did capture the monster for her. She knows she's the one who asked for it, but now she feels a little bad for making him go out of his way for her sake. Roger notices that she's acting a little strange, so he asks Melf if something is wrong, and all of a sudden she looks up and sincerely thanks him for his effort. She asks if it would be okay for her to take a little peek inside, and Roger sees no issue with that, so he leads her over to the cage. Melf doesn't see any movement coming from it, so she asks Roger if he already killed it, but he pulls the cloth away to reveal that the Moodle is still very much alive, just unconscious. And not only that, he managed to nab a golden-furred royal Moodle, which is extremely rare. Moodles are monsters similar to cows, which usually have white fur, but royal Moodles develop a gold color as they grow, making their fur incredibly valuable for things like coats and scarves, but their meat often ends up being discarded, which Melf thinks is such a waste. Melf has never gotten to try one before, but since it's a herbivore that only feeds on fruits and mushrooms, she expects that it'll taste delicious. But that aside, finding one with fur this nice is rare, so Melf asks Roger if he's really sure he wants to give her something this valuable. Roger tells her he wouldn't have gone through all the trouble of capturing it alive if he wasn't going to give it to her, and Melf is really happy to hear that because it means she is free to prepare it in any way she chooses. She can't express just how happy Roger has made her, and it's clear that seeing her like this has Roger really flustered, so Chaos and the others just stand back and let him have his moment. A little while later, Melf's father arrives to formally greet Roger, and he thanks him for making the long journey out here. Roger apologizes for showing up so suddenly, but he said he wanted to get a response to his proposal before winter set in, and Melf had been so excited by the Moodle that she almost forgot that Roger is here to ask for her hand in marriage. She asks her father for permission to let Roger's dragons hunt in the mountains, and he isn't opposed to the idea, but he is a bit confused because he assumed that Moodle over there was meant to be food for dragons. However, Melf tells him the Moodle is actually for her. Melf's dad is surprised to hear that since he didn't think Roger knew about her hobby, but she tells him Roger actually went out of his way just so he could try some of her monster cooking. And on that note, she asks her dad for permission to open a research facility so she can start preparing the Moodle as soon as possible. Her dad worries that seeing Melf butcher a monster might be off-putting to Roger, but he speaks up and tells Melf's father that he understands her to some extent, and he is also aware of the nasty rumors surrounding her, and he is proposing despite them. Hearing that Roger is so interested in Melf is the best news her dad has heard all day, so he tells Roger that he should make himself at home. But before that, Roger says he'd like to do something about the gift he brought before it wakes up since it's still alive. Melf's father is shocked to learn that Roger brought a living Moodle here, but Melf was the one who asked him to capture it alive. On that note, since he's here, Roger says he'd like to watch the preparation process, so her dad tells her to show him to her research facility. Roger and his men take off on the dragons to start heading towards the facility, and Melf is having a great time since she has always wanted to try riding a dragon. As the facility comes into view, Melf points it out to Roger, but he can sense a bit of hesitation in her voice, so he asks her if something is wrong. Melf plays it off and says she's just nervous about riding a dragon for the first time, but that's not actually what's bothering her. She's happy that Roger doesn't mind her eating monster meat, but she won't know if he is truly okay with it until he has seen how she prepares it, and she is rather nervous because she's not sure how he will react. This was the end of episode 2. Subscribe to not miss the next part.